Hey everybody, this is Busa Bob from Busa Bob's Garage, and today I'm going to be fixing a problem with the rear turn signals on my Kawasaki KLR650. It's a 2008, and I've been having problems with the turn signals. Actually, one of them broke off on me a while back, and I replaced it with an OEM turn signal. And now I just had the opposite side break, so I'm going to come up with another solution. And basically, to do this, you have to remove the rear rack, and I've already got it pretty much off, but I just wanted to show you there's a couple of bolts that hold the rack to the subframe, one on each side, and then there's a couple of bolts on top that have to be taken out, and this thing basically comes off of here, but there's some mounting brackets on the sides for the lights. Those have to come off as well, and then you have to get the lights out, the wiring, and there's a couple of holes. There's one here on the rear fender, and then lighting's not too good here, but there's a plate underneath the rear fender that has 4 bolts on it, and then all of the wiring is kind of clamped in underneath that plate. These plates hold the turn signals on the side, and as you can see here, the turn signal goes in there, and the problem is these things break. They're just so cheap, and it's just a hollow piece of rubber. What I'm going to do is I got a set of Suzuki Hayabusa tail light or turn signals, and I'm going to retrofit these things on here because the Busa turn signals are much more robust design, and this there's a metal shaft going all the way through this thing, and it's just going to hold up a lot better. Okay, what I found out here is on the KLR, the Kawasaki light, the yellow and black wire is the ground, and you know that because the wire is attached to the outer housing of the fixture that the light goes into, and then the center wire is the hot one, and that's the one that goes on and off when the turn signal comes on. And just so happens that both the Kawasaki and the Suzuki Hayabusa use the exact same bulb. It's a it's got the orange coating on it, and they're both 21 watt bulbs, so I'm not going to have any problem. Like if you installed LED blinkers, you sometimes have to install a load resistor on there, and that's one thing that I didn't want. Now on the Hayabusa light, the white and black wire is the ground. The design is a little bit different here of the housing, but I can see that the white and black wire goes up and touches the outer metal case of the light socket. So all I have to remember is black and white is ground, and yellow and black is ground. So what I'm going to do is cut these wires about here and then splice them together. And as I said, you can either solder them together and put heat shrink on them, or you can use these butt splices like this one, put the wire in each end and crimp it. I also found these connectors that I thought were kind of cool. They're a dolphin connector, and you just insert both wires into this side and then crimp it down, and it's got some teeth inside that grab onto the wire. And you know, technically you should be able to insert them with the insulation, but I like to strip them a little bit just to make sure I'm getting good contact. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I'll show it to you when it's all crimped up. Okay, before I do the crimping, there's one thing that I want to show you is the length of the Busa wires are a little bit shorter, and that's one other reason why I'm installing the whole wiring harness. I mean, I could just take and change the ends on these things just to get the right connector on there. That's one way to do it, but the problem is that the wire is going to be too short to get routed across the underside of the fender on the KLR. So I'm just going to cut here, and I'm going to remove this whole wire from the KLR assembly. Again, trying to work with one hand here. Okay, so basically I'm taking this whole wire and I am going to crimp it on somewhere about here on the Hayabusa socket, and then I'll stick the connectors inside the housing. But one thing you want to do first before you do any crimping is feed this up through here, you know, before you put your crimps on. Okay. One thing that I found is you want to cut the wire as short as possible on the KLR side, and then leave yourself a good 2-3 inches of wire on the Hayabusa side, because what you want to do is make sure you have enough length on this wire on the KLR. So don't shortchange yourself on the KLR wire. Just cut it as close as you can to the socket. I did have to peel back a little bit of insulation on this guy so I could feed it all the way through and have enough room to make my crimps. And you can see that the crimps or the splices worked out nicely here, and basically I can just tuck this thing right in here and everything's gonna fit. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. I'll get another picture in a second. So here you can see I have the assembly back together. There's a tab that goes in first, so you have to put this side in first and then push the lens on, and there's a screw that holds the lens on, and everything fit in there perfectly with the splices, and it's ready to be assembled back on the bracket. So I'm going to go and do that right now. Okay, unfortunately my plan A isn't going to work out correctly, because when this thing is oriented, the tail light, or I'm sorry, the turn signal will actually be facing down or up when I put this thing back in, and that's because the raised area that I was gonna put in here does not give it the correct orientation. So what I'm gonna have to do is modify this thing so it sits in here like this. And what I'm going to do is take some material off of that plastic washer, and I'm going to give it the correct orientation. So the way I'll go about that is take this and basically scribe it right there. Sorry about the positioning of the camera. I'm going to scribe it and take this material off, and at least that way I'll still have something to give me the right orientation. So I'm going to work on that right now. Okay, I went ahead and lined this thing up where I wanted. I got the hole kind of centered towards the back of this thing, and I made my scribe marks, and you can see here, here, and here there's only a small amount of material that I have to take off, so I'm going to do that with an X-Acto blade. Okay, the X-Acto blade wasn't quite doing the trick. I ended up using a Dremel tool and a cutoff wheel. You might be able to get the same result with a file, but basically I took that material off the edges of this thing and kind of cut it down, and now you can see that it fits in here, and there's going to be limited movement on this thing. Okay, so that's how it's going to go together. Okay, now you can see that I have the thing fully assembled. You want to make sure you get that nut on there tight, but the washer is retaining the thing from the back. There is going to be a little bit of an opening on the side here, but that isn't going to be a problem. And this thing will go up on here like this, and basically you use the same hardware that you took off and put the screws through here and on the bracket, and then there's a nut that goes on the other side, and I would recommend using some Loctite on this when you, or some thread locker when you put the nuts back on, because as you know, the KLRs vibrate a little bit. I'll get one more shot when this thing is back up on the rack. Okay, here you're looking at the assembly with the lights back on the rack. I just want to point out there's a couple little clips that hold the wire in position, and just want to make sure that you get those back in. And again, I put some Loctite on the bolts, and this thing is ready to go back on the bike. Okay, finally here's the setup back on the bike, and as you can see, we've got turn signals.